It was one of those rare mornings when billionaire CEO Daniel Gray decided to take his daughter Lily to the park himself. Usually his assistant or the nanny handled that. But something inside him, something restless and aching, had pushed him out of his penthouse and into the sunlight. Maybe it was because tomorrow marked 3 years since his wife, Emily, had passed away giving birth to Lily. As he pushed the stroller down the quiet path, he couldn't help but glance at his daughter's small, curious face. She had her mother's eyes, gentle, brown, and full of wonder. Every time Lily smiled, it felt like Emily was still there. "Spring, take care of her, Danny." Daniel sat on a bench and pulled out his phone, lost in work emails. But a small voice pulled him back to reality. "Hi," Lily giggled. "You have flowers." Daniel looked up. His heart skipped a beat. A frail-looking woman stood near the edge of the playground holding a small bunch of wildflowers. Her clothes were worn, her hair tied loosely in a bun, yet there was something kind, something familiar in her eyes as she knelt to Lily's level. "Hello, little one," the woman said softly, smiling. "Would you like one?" Lily nodded eagerly. Daniel immediately stood, cautious. He didn't like strangers approaching his daughter, especially ones who looked homeless. "That's enough, sweetheart," Daniel said sharply, stepping closer. "Come here." The woman flinched at his tone and began to back away. But before she turned, she murmured something that made Daniel's entire body go cold. "I used to be your wife's nurse." He froze. The world seemed to stop spinning. His wife's nurse? Emily's nurse? "Wait," he said quickly, his voice suddenly trembling. "What did you say?" The woman stopped and turned around slowly, tears already pooling in her eyes. I was the nurse assigned to Emily during her pregnancy. My name's Grace. Grace Miller." Daniel's heart clenched. That name, he remembered it faintly from the hospital files. The woman who had taken care of Emily during her difficult months. But she had disappeared after the delivery. No one knew what happened to her. "Grace," he whispered, disbelief etched across his face. You were there that night?" She nodded. "I was, sir. I was the one who held her hand, till the end." His throat tightened. The air around him grew heavy. "Then why didn't you ever reach out?" "The hospital said you vanished. There were questions, investigations. They thought you ran away because of mistakes." Grace lowered her head. "There were mistakes. No. But not the ones they accused me of." They sat on the same bench a few minutes later, Lily playing quietly in the sand nearby. Grace's hands trembled as she spoke. "The night your wife gave birth, there were complications," she said softly. Emily's heart rate started dropping. The attending doctor was late. I called for help again and again, but the hospital was short-staffed. When they finally came, it was too late. Tears filled her eyes. They blamed me for negligence, said I didn't follow protocol, but I did everything I could. I begged them to save her. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you fight the accusations?" She looked down at her worn shoes. "Because I couldn't afford a lawyer. I lost my job, my license, everything. And I didn't want to cause your family more pain. Your wife was kind to me, Mr. Gray. She used to talk about you all the time. She said you were her miracle. I couldn't bear the thought of standing in front of you after." Damn, Daniel's heart twisted. All those years he had carried anger in his chest toward that nameless nurse who had failed his wife. He had cursed her in silence, convinced she was the reason Lily had to grow up without a mother. And now, here she was, broken, apologizing for something that wasn't her fault. "Where have you been all these years?" he asked quietly. Grace gave a weak smile. "Doing small jobs. Cleaning, caregiving. I visit the hospital sometimes, just to sit outside. I still leave flowers for Emily every year." Daniel's eyes softened. You visit her grave?" She nodded. "Every year on her birthday." He swallowed hard. "I go there too. But I've never seen you." "I always come early in the morning," she whispered. "I didn't think I had the right to face you." There was silence between them, deep, aching silence filled with years of grief and misunderstanding. Then Lily ran up, holding the wildflower Grace had given her. "Daddy, look pretty." Daniel took a deep breath, looking at the small flower, then back at the woman who had once held his dying wife's hand. Maybe. This meeting wasn't an accident. In the following weeks, Daniel couldn't get Grace out of his mind. He found out she was living in a small shelter on the city's outskirts. One rainy afternoon, he drove there unannounced. Grace was sweeping the floor when he appeared at the door. She looked startled, almost scared. "Mr. Gray?" He stepped forward. "It's Daniel, and I came here to say I'm sorry." She blinked in disbelief. "Sorry? For what?" "For believing lies. For hating you. For letting my grief blind me to the truth." He pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside was a letter of apology addressed to the hospital board, along with the official reinstatement, a request he had personally signed and backed with his influence. Grace's hands trembled as she read it. "Here, you're helping me get my license back." Daniel smiled softly. "You deserve to heal too, Grace. You gave your all that night. My wife would want me to thank you, not hate you." Tears streamed down her face. She covered her mouth, shaking with emotion. "I don't know what to say." Looked at her kindly. "Say you'll come visit Lily sometimes. She likes you." Months later, Grace stood again at the hospital, this time not as an outcast, but as a nurse, reinstated with honor. Daniel had even donated a new wing to the hospital in Emily's memory, named the Grace and Emily's Maternity Center. One spring morning, Grace visited the park again. Lily ran into her arms, laughing. Daniel stood nearby, watching the two most unexpected blessings of his life, his daughter, and the woman who had once been a silent part of his pain, now helping him heal. "Mommy would be happy," Lily said innocently, looking up at the sky. Daniel smiled, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart, she would be." Thank you for watching. Remember that forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it can heal the wounds that time alone never could. If you enjoy